Welcome back, Anatomy and Physiology class. Today, we're taking a pretty fascinating journey right inside your bloodstream. We're going to be walking through an explainer of the human immune system, but we aren't just going to look at dry, boring cell structures. Instead, I want you to think of your white blood cells as this highly coordinated, microscopic military force, because that's exactly what they are. Each type of cell we're covering today operates with specific tactics, specialized weapons, and strict protocols just to keep you alive. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our mission briefing for today. We'll start with the innate versus adaptive branches. Then look at the infantry and cleanup crews. After that, we'll cover the chemical signalers and scouts, meet the elite special forces, and finally wrap up with a quick student knowledge check. So, before we actually meet the individual troops, you really have to understand the two major divisions of this microscopic military. First, we have the innate branch. These cells are your instant responders. They aren't picky, and they are non-antigen specific. That basically means they don't have to figure out exactly who the invading substance is before they attack. They just spring into action the second a foreign threat is detected. Then, on the other side, we have the adaptive branch. These are your highly targeted specialists. Now, they do take a little longer to deploy initially because they rely on immunological memory. But once they recognize a repeat invader, their response is incredibly lethal and precise. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how visually distinct these cells are when we look at them under a microscope with different stains. Check out the neutrophil. It has this incredible multi-lobed nucleus surrounded by these light purple granules. Then look at the eosinophil, literally bursting with deep red granules. And the basophil is packed so densely with dark purple granules that its nucleus is practically obscured entirely. You can't even see it. And these physical features aren't just for show. They actually hint at the specific chemical weapons these cells carry inside.
Section 2. Infantry and cleanup crews, neutrophils and monocytes. Neutrophils are absolutely the rapid response infantry of your innate immune system. They're the very first responders to hit an infection site. Because of this massive responsibility, they're actually the most abundant white blood cell in your body, making up an incredible 60% of your immune force. When a threat like bacteria or a fungus is detected, neutrophils respond and multiply incredibly fast. That's why a high white blood cell count at the doctor's office usually means you've got an acute infection. And their method of attack? It is brutal. They unleash what's called a respiratory burst, basically spraying the invaders with hydrogen peroxide and a chemical that's very similar to household bleach.
But think about it. What happens to all the cellular debris after the infantry strikes? Well, that's where monocytes come in. They make up about 6% of your white blood cells, and you can think of them as your heavy-duty cleanup crews. They actually start out as immature cells just circulating in your blood. But when they're called to action, they migrate directly into human tissues. And once they get there, they undergo this amazing transformation, differentiating into heavy-duty macrophages. Now, the word macrophage literally translates to big eater, and as elite phagocytes, their whole job is to ingest, break down, and scavenge dead microbes. This is especially crucial in heavy, serious infections like tuberculosis and malaria.
Section 3. Chemical signalers and scouts, basophils and eosinophils.
All right, let's clear up a very common misconception that trips up a lot of anatomy students. Basophils and mast cells both use chemical warfare, right? But they have completely different patrol routes. Basophils are constantly circulating in your bloodstream. This allows them to provide a widespread systemic response to an invader. Mast cells, on the other hand, reside locally in your tissues, like your skin. So if you get a mosquito bite, that immediate localized swelling, that's your mast cells at work. But if you're having a full-body systemic reaction to a threat, that's your circulating basophil springing into action. So the crucial point is understanding the actual chemical weapons these basophils deploy, specifically histamine. When a basophil detects an allergen or a parasite, it doesn't just sit there. It releases a massive chemical cloud of histamine to trigger a systemic alert, acting as a gatekeeper to recruit a bunch of other immune cells. But for us on the outside, that chemical alarm system translates directly into super annoying allergy symptoms. Every single time you experience itchy skin, watery eyes, and a runny nose during allergy season, you're literally just feeling the effects of your basophils deploying histamine alerts throughout your entire body. Now, who exactly are the basophils calling in for backup? More often than not, it's the eosinophils. Making up roughly 3% of your white blood cells, these guys are your specialized scouts. They don't waste their time on tiny little bacteria. No, they hunt massive, large-scale parasitic invaders like worms and ticks. And eosinophils are incredibly tactical. If a tick bites you, eosinophils will actually infiltrate the specific physical attachment site of the tick, working alongside basophils to produce toxins that trigger inflammation and destroy the parasite. Oh, and they also play a major role in moderating those severe allergy and asthma responses we just talked about.
Moving on to Section 4, the elite special forces, lymphocytes.
And this brilliantly illustrates the tactical distribution of your lymphocyte forces. When we look at the 30% of your white blood cells that make up the lymphocytes, we see they're divided into 3 highly specialized units. A massive 75% are your T cells, 15% are your natural killer, or NK cells, and the remaining 10% are your B cells. Together, this triad works the absolute front lines of your blood and lymph systems to identify and systematically destroy foreign invaders. The tactics used by these elite forces, particularly the T cells and natural killer cells, are highly sophisticated. They don't just blindly spray bleach around like the infantry does. Step 1, they identify a compromised target, like a host cell that's been infected by a virus or even a cancer cell. Step 2, they deliver what biologists beautifully term the kiss of death. They use specialized proteins called perforants to literally punch physical holes right through the invader's cell membrane. Finally, in Step 3, they drop granzyme enzymes straight through those holes. These act like tiny little grenades to completely destroy the compromised cell from the inside out. It's wildly effective.
So, to summarize our special forces, T cells are your elite close combat assassins. And fun fact, they actually mature right in your thymus organ before migrating out to an invasion site. B cells act as your long-range artillery. They don't really do hand-to-hand combat. Instead, they sit back and manufacture highly specific antibodies to shoot at the enemy from a distance. Then you have natural killer cells, the unique operatives that bridge the gap. They possess the rapid speed of the innate branch, but they pack the punch-hole perforant tactics of the adaptive branch. But here's the most important takeaway. All of these lymphocytes store immunological memory. Every single battle they fight is recorded, ensuring a vastly faster and stronger response if that exact same invader ever dares to return.
Section 5. Student Knowledge Check. Pop quiz time.
Let's move on and see how this builds your overall understanding with a quick pop quiz. Question 1. Which cell acts as the rapid response infantry, multiplying quickly and making up a whopping 60% of your white blood cells? Is it A, the monocyte, B, the neutrophil, or C, the B cell? Take a second. All right, the answer is B, the neutrophil. Remember, these are your frontline troops launching that intense respiratory burst of bleach and hydrogen peroxide at bacterial invaders.
Okay, let's try question 2. Which cell releases histamine for a systemic, body-wide response causing all those frustrating allergy symptoms like watery eyes and a runny nose? Is it A, the basophil, B, the mast cell, or C, the eosinophil? The correct answer is A, the basophil. Remember the difference here. While mast cells also release histamine, they are strictly local defenders hanging out in your skin, whereas basophils circulate through your entire bloodstream to ring the systemic alarm. And our final question for today, what is the specific role of B cells within this immune defense force? Is it A, heavy tissue cleanup, B, elite close combat assassins, or C, long-range artillery making antibodies? If you guessed C, you nailed it! B cells stay on the front lines, but hang back just enough to act as your long-range artillery, mass-producing targeted antibodies to neutralize the enemy from a distance.
You guys did fantastic today. But before I let you out of class, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought. We just learned that your elite special forces, the lymphocytes, store a permanent immunological memory of every battle they fight, making them faster and far deadlier the second time around. So, how might scientists use that exact mechanism to train your elite forces, basically giving them the memory of an enemy they've never actually met? Think on that, because next time we're diving into the absolutely incredible science of vaccines. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you in the next lesson.